Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you today. I'm going to be talking a whole lot about TNA, Impact Wrestling. I don't even know what I'm going to title this video yet. I'm looking at maybe 4 or 5 of the big topics about TNA, and we'll just talk about it, and we'll just see how we can figure it out. Yesterday, I had a family day where I was driving around with the family. We were hanging out with my kid's grandpa, and he just wanted to take him from one place to another, so I had a long time in the car, and I listened to a few different wrestling podcasts. One of them was Brian Alvarez on the Pile Driver podcast, something like that. I apologize. He was there as a guest, and it was kind of weird because everything I ever listened to him, he is the host, and he's the guy steering the ship, and this was him taking questions and running with them. There was some points of the podcast where I thought that he was doing a one-man Figure 4 Daily sort of show because the answers were so long and in-depth, and it wasn't like he was hogging the show. He just was answering the questions, but there's sometimes, when you're listening to podcasts, you're listening to people's videos, it's almost like you're sitting in church and the pastor is up there and he's talking, and you almost feel like he's talking just to you, and you're shouting out amens and hallelujahs about how good what the person is saying. And he was talking about the state of TNA and about how TNA is really desperately looking to get their TNA deal with Spike TV. They're trying to get that really all, put together so they can see what kind of funds they're going to be having going into the future. And, a lot of the things that are going on in TNA is almost like they're starting in a new direction. Once again, a lot of things are changing, and you don't really know if they're for the good or for the better. Some things you can look at as, pluses, and some things you can think of as minuses. It's hard to grow a wrestling company when you already have a reputation of, the ship is going down. They've done almost everything in the world you could think of that would make this company take 2 steps forward. And the company is just, in the fans' eyes, just way backwards. You can see, one of the biggest decisions of last year, this year, whenever it was, it came down around the beginning of this year in January, I think is when it finally was like boom, was AJ Styles leaving the company. TNA decided that it was too much money to re-sign AJ for what he wanted, and they were just really just trying to lowball him too bad. So basically showed him the door after he was the guy, in my mind, that really built that company up. And now here it is, TNA going out and having a Slammiversary pay-per-view, only getting 8,000 buys on TV. The TNA is going out and having house shows with less than 500 people attending. The numbers out there are too low for even me to believe on how many people actually paid and how many people got in for free. So I'm not going to restate those facts, but you can look them up if you're really looking for them. But it's just weird, ROH has a pay-per-view out, and a lot of people are, big-time wrestling indie fans, and they're going to get behind it. And as far as I can tell from the YWC, from Twitter, from YouTube videos, the ROH company is probably more than likely going to be right up there with Slammiversaries. TNA, is on Spike TV each and every week with 1 million viewers. ROH is a company that it's in a few select cities where they're a TV company that owns them. And has TV in order to put them on TV. A lot of their stuff is just, they're basically subscribing to their stuff on the internet. They're the ROH website and having the, I don't know what they call it, their own little sort of network deal where you sign up and you can watch a lot of the DVDs, you can watch the shows. That's like their own little promotion that's going strong besides for, their YouTube videos that they put up and things like that. And I bet when it all comes down to it, they might not get as many buys as Slammiversary as 8,000, but it's going to be damn close to make you really just sort of shake your head. And you would think, if, ROH is making a big deal about having, AJ Styles, various independent shows around the country are, having AJ Styles and making a big deal out of it, and they're pulling 1,000+ fans at these shows. New Japan signs AJ Styles and puts the title on him, makes him the main man of the Bullet Club, making the Bullet Club T-shirt one of the most sought after shirts there is in wrestling right now. I know that it's sort of hard to get their hands on. People aren't buying them up as like Austin 316 or NWO status, but basically that's the hot shirt to get in wrestling. It's almost like the CM Punk 2011 Best in the World shirt. It was just the shirt that everyone had to have. When watching the TV, there's some things, that are, on the plus side. Bobby Lashley on Impact won the title from Eric Young. To me, Eric Young just never should have been a champion. Bobby Lashley, to me, could be a good champion for TNA. When I think a lot of people look at him as they see a guy who had his peak 7 years ago around WrestleMania 23 with the main event, co-main event, whatever you want to say, with the Battle of the Billionaires, him going up against Umaga. Seemed like he was going to be, one of the send-off statuses for him, and everything goes down between Crystal getting fired, and everybody knows the story about Doc Hendricks backstage, and basically him getting his release. It's just good that Bobby Lashley was actually finally able to use his #1 contendership that he won back in 2010 before he left the company due to him and his mixed martial arts, which I don't know. I thought that when Lashley signed with TNA, he was going to be doing double duty, but to me it seems like now he's just going to be, wrestling. Bobby Lashley could be a good champion. Everybody knows with the group built up around him, that might be coming to a crumble with Kurt Angle taking over as the, I don't really know what that title is, the Director of Wrestling Operations or something like that. He's going to be basically the GM, going back to what SmackDown was in 2003 and 2004. Angle on TV is a plus, especially when he's injured and he's not able to wrestle. We've seen him in this role really, really shine in the WWE. I can't remember if he's ever been to TNA GM or not. I know Sting's been there, and Sting had his ups and downs. It seemed like that sort of went a little bit too long. But as long as Angle's on TV and could hint at the fact that he's going to fight, it could be good, especially when he's going up against all these heels. What's going on with Dixie Carter? I have no idea. They brought Tommy Dreamer there, and it almost looked like for a minute that Tommy Dreamer was going to be the guy that broke her into becoming a babyface, making her break down and cry before she just low-blowed him in the balls. It doesn't... When you have a power struggle between people, there should be, it's almost like Star Wars with good versus evil, with two heels battling it out over who's going to run the company. To me, it just doesn't make sense between her and MVP. They need to either join forces or somebody needs to turn. And I have no idea what that is going to be. Dixie Carter, when asked by Tommy Dreamer about, if she remembered when he came into the company, saying that she's not able to remember what goes down in the company, sort of shows you, even though that's sort of a character thing, and maybe Dixie Carter really does believe it, but just, she has her head up her ass about not knowing what's going on in her own company at this time. With Kurt Angle moving into the Director of Operations GM role, could be really good. TNA to me really hit its stride when I was watching it at a continuous pace when Jim Cornette came into the company, sort of as the guy that was sort of like the judge in the courtroom. Well, I'm going to allow this, I'm not going to allow that. Just sort of putting his foot down. And when he got, sort of pushed out of TNA for not getting along with Dixie, and then bringing in the Mick Foley character, and Mick Foley being the new commissioner, pushing Jim Cornette out. To me, that was the one point when I really got into it, because it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of everybody just doing anything they wanted to. There was almost like a, somebody in the courtroom, the lawyer just sort of figuring out what was going down. TNA had a return with Taryn Darrell coming back. I think it's really good. I mean, you go back to Slammiversary, the match that Taryn Jarrell had against Gail Kim. We've seen Madison Rayne come back after her pregnancy and having her baby and being able to shine once again like she once did. I don't think Taryn Jarrell is a real big return that is going to push this company. I don't think a diva is ever going to keep them up. I am a big Taryn Jarrell fan. It just, I don't think that, it's going to be anything that you remember 2-3 weeks down the road. Hopefully they can come up and Taryn Terrell can get back to wrestling to where she once was. I know the Slammiversary match was really good, and I think the latter match was actually on Impact, so that wasn't on a pay-per-view. And we're never going to see it again unless somebody uploaded it onto YouTube, because TNA, how they are putting out pay-per-view releases, and they are putting out the one-night-only deals. Why there is no best of 2012 sort of DVD, I got no clue. Best of the knockout division, something like that. These seems like DVDs that the company would buy and people would jump for. Last big story on the list is Matt Hardy making his return to Impact Wrestling. I left this for the very end, even though this probably is the biggest thing that is going in the company, because it does involve a spoiler. So if you don't want to know what's going on with the spoiler, I think I already spoiled something with talking about Kurt Angle becoming the GM. I think that is the cliffhanger of next week's episode. But Matt Hardy coming in, basically they're going to reteam the Hardy Boys, which was in all of the press releases that they put out. So, I mean, they're sort of spoiling what's going on in their own company. But, basically, Kurt Angle is going to go to Willow and tell Willow that he needs to be Jeff Hardy again, because that's what TNA Impact Wrestling is, and sort of is restarting what that one thing is. Willow, to me, honestly, seems like it was sort of a fail of a deal. I know he had the tag team match at Sacrifice with him and Angle. He had the match with, who the fuck did he have a match with at the pay-per-view? Magnus, I believe, at Slammiversary. They had a lot of TV matches. I hope they sold a lot of $40 umbrellas. But, it was sort of a fail. But when Jeff Hardy is the biggest man of your company and he has an idea, you sort of got to go with it. And, just hope that you can find some good out of it. I hope you can sell some masks. I know that they've, released, the umbrella, the mask. It's going to take a while to sell all that stuff. Hopefully there's a lot of historian fans inside of TNA that want to buy that stuff up, or it's going to be on deep discount come Black November. But the Hardy Boys seems like it could be a good idea. I just don't know who they're going to, wrestle. Basically, with the Bromans. Bromans right now are in the feud with the Von Erichs. The Von Erichs are going to be going at the pace where you want to push them and make them into a star. I don't know if you want to make them as big a star as the Wolves, but it seems like you only have one heel tag team in the Bromans, and one of them is going to be leaving to go film the Amazing Race with Brooke. So you're going to have to start putting some people into there, because you got the Von Erichs, you got the Wolves, you got the Hardys. I know that you can have like some four corners matches and stuff like that, and you can find a way for these guys all to wrestle and find some hope in the tag team division to move them up. But I don't know. Matt Hardy, to me, when he went to Ring of Honor, it was almost like a last chance hope to save his wrestling career and try to help somebody. In the way that he came in and had the matches with Adam Cole and built Adam Cole up, and he's just been able to generate this level of hate where the wrestling fans really hate Matt Hardy. It sort of seems like it's the thing to do. It's pretty easy when you go to a show and you're really trying to get some wrestling action after the what was the show that I went to, Super Card of Honor, down in New Orleans, the Ring of Honor show, and you really just want to see some wrestling action, and Matt Hardy goes out there and cuts a 15-minute wrestling promo. It's pretty easy to hate the guy for basically stalling the show down, and I know that he did hit the twist of fate on a guy a few times. I think it was cheeseburger or hamburger or some shit like that. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Ring of Honor fan. I know a little bit about it from watching videos on here. I go to a show once a year, WrestleMania weekend. I bought a few DVDs, but they're older DVDs, so there's stuff that happened like years ago that I'm watching on there. But I don't know. Matt Hardy could be good. The Hardy Boys is a name. I'm sure some people are going to want to see it. Jeff Hardy, being strapped into a tag team, if it's for a short-term deal, it could be good. But you want to be using your biggest names of your company in the biggest situations, and a tag team to me isn't that. But maybe the Hardys can just sort of break off. Matt can do a singles run where he goes after, I was going to say, a championship or something, but we'll figure it out. TNA,